Hello, hello, happy Thursday. We are back. Elevate and engage. Thursday came fast this week. We're talking about follow up that feels human and still gets the sale. So I think this is one of the biggest problems that most of us have, whether you're a small business coach, consultant, anybody who has calls and needs to follow up. Leads come in, you have to follow up. Or you're doing outreach and you have to follow up. So one of the hardest things is number one, everybody wants to outsource everything, right? Everybody wants to automate everything. And that is great when you have so many things coming in that you can't handle it anymore. But until you're at that point, you really should do a little bit of this process yourself, so you can get the messaging right, so that you can get more personal. You're going to close a lot more the more personal you can get with your messaging. So hence the without sounding like a bot, because a lot of people are reverting to AI for a lot of their messaging, which is okay if you can get your AI, like if you've got the twin, right? If you can get your AI to sound like you, then that's okay. But you cannot personalize each message if you're only copy pasting. And I do recommend until you're full, until your calendar is full, until you're making as much as you want, that you do a lot of that personalization yourself. Maybe not, right at the top, but as soon as it gets down to here, for sure. So you don't want to sound like a bot, and you don't want to sound like you're begging either. You don't want to sound like you're coming from this place of desperation or lack. That also doesn't usually go over well. So you want to be careful of your messaging, but also your tone, how you're saying it. Words count, words matter, and the words that you say matter. And if you're doing things in DM, you have to think of how to create tone from the words, because, or maybe your emojis, right? Things like that can help create tone. But remember, it's hard to get that tone in DM. So you want to kind of create that and not look like a bot in the process. All right. So the biggest thing that we talk about is how to how to have conversational follow-up with your audience. That's pretty much the gist of everything that we do as a whole, right? Conversation is the key to getting more clients. I don't know why I'm stumbling and stuttering today. Conversation is the key to getting more clients, and you need to have more conversations. So how are you getting them started? And then once you're in those conversations, what are you saying and how are you moving them forward, right? So it's each step of the way. How are you going to make those conversations just a little bit better? So we want to make them personal, or we want to make them at least feel personal, intentional, and move the sale forward. All right, so we're going to talk about how to follow up without pressure, how to restart a conversation that's gone cold. We have to do that. It is what it is, right? And how to close the gap between I'm thinking about it and I'm in. Just one hint here, but you definitely want somebody to give you like a concrete yes or no, if and when at all possible. All right, so why traditional follow-ups fall flat? So the copy paste type things of, you've heard like, hey, just following up. Oh, that's so generic. It's transactional, which makes people feel like, hey, I'm just waiting for you to sign up. Nobody wants to feel like that. So with that said, the first thing you want to do is think of how do you want to make them feel, right? How do you want to make them feel? Because if you're thinking of how can I follow up? How can I get them to buy? Your frame of mind needs a little bit of a shift. You need to think first, how can I make them feel when I send this message? And you need to send a message that makes them feel like you actually care what is going on in their life, or what's going on in their business, or with XYZ. So follow-ups typically lack context, and they don't reference like the person or their goals or something. And this is where we get into, more personalized follow-ups. But if you can actually bring it back to something and say, hey, are you still working on that project? How's it going? And talk about the project that they told you about, they feel seen and heard, and you can help them feel seen and heard just by making it personalized, just by giving it some context about what you were talking about before. So a lot of the traditional follow-up create pressure instead of conversation. You want to create conversation. Remember, the buyer's journey is like this, right? But it could take a while. If you were online 10 years ago, it was so much faster. And maybe you're used to that and you haven't realized that, it's slower now, it's longer now. So if you are new to the game, you're like, oh, this is taking forever. I can't close a client. Well, it could be just because you're not following up at all, which is what 99% of the people do. It could be that you're following up once and then giving up, just not following up enough, or that you're using these traditional methods that really just fall flat, especially now in a crowded world. You have to have conversations, real conversations with people. So it's not a ping, it's a continuation of a conversation. If that's the only thing you get out of this, that is the most important thing. So it's not a, hey, what, ping, hey, I'm bringing this, you've seen that one. I'm bringing this to the top of your box, your email box or your inbox. I'm bringing this to the top of your inbox. Don't do that. That feels very transactional. So you want to think of a way to start a conversation, restart a conversation, get back into the conversation about something that they were already interested in. And if you never got to the point of whether they were interested or not, maybe you're following up on the ones that, are dead ends. If you don't have a ton of other ones to follow up on those dead ends right now. Once you get into it later, you'll have more of the other type. But at the moment, if that's all you have, follow up on the dead ends. Don't worry about it. Decide how many times you're going to follow up if they don't answer. If they answer at all, just decide ahead of time. So it's very formulated. So it doesn't feel like you are like, oh, should I not? Don't waste time on that. Hey, I'm going to follow up 5 times. If they don't answer, I'm not going to, follow up again. Or 3 times if they don't acknowledge even a heart, I'm just not going to do it again. Whatever it feels comfortable to you, then do that and move on. But if they give you a heart, have that in your notes. If they give me a heart, then that counts as follow-up and I'm going to keep going to X amount. Or if they give me a heart, I'll try one more time or whatever it is. You want to kind of make those decisions ahead of time so that you don't have to think about it at the moment. Have you ever heard how the famous CEOs that wear the exact same clothing all of the time? If you've ever tried to start working out and you're like, okay, I'm going to lay out my clothes the night before. Why? Because it makes it easy. It takes that thought process out of your head. You want to do the same thing here because we already, most of us, are not loving doing the outreach. We're not loving, reaching back out or follow-ups worse than the initial one probably. So we need to do things to make it easier on us. And I say track everything, give yourself kudos for following up with, however many you have for the day. I'm going to follow up with 5 people every single day, regardless of whether they answer or not. Give yourself kudos for doing that rather than whether they answer or not. You really can't control that. I mean, maybe a little bit in what you're saying, you can control some of it, but not all of the time. So just think of ahead of time, this, and then just do it. Obviously, if there's something going on and you're like, ooh, but this is a good one, I kind of want to follow up again by all means. But 9 out of 10, you want to know exactly what you're doing and how often you're doing it to take that thought process out of it. Because number 1, you'll talk yourself out of it. You will. And number 2, it's a a busy form of procrastination. Okay, well, how much should I do this? Should I not? You can spend 20 minutes. Well, let me think about it. I'll sleep on it. Let me get back to it tomorrow. There's a million ways you can procrastinate on that one, right? So don't give yourself that opportunity. Just have a list and move forward. All right, we're going to talk about the human follow-up formula. And I use this all of the time, so drop it down below if you know it. If you don't, we will go through the framework together. So, W, who knows it? Drop it down below if you know it. W, what stood out? I change them all the time, but they all mean the same thing. What stood out? So mention something they said or did, make it personal. If you can bring it back to something they said or did that is about like what you do, ding, 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 way major points. If you can't, bring it back to anything. Something they said in a past conversation, something you noticed that they posted, anything that just mention something they said or did so that they know that you're really, a person, that you're really reading what they said, or, be specific as possible in that first one. And that will help them realize that you are human and that you're a person. All right, the A is acknowledge the gap. All right, if you don't know it, WA. If you know it, drop it down below. All right, acknowledge the gap. Reflect that time has passed, and that's okay. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't in this particular one. And again, you decide what works for you and what feels good for you. So some people will not send a message if they don't say, hey, so sorry, blah, blah. I'm like do not apologize. If you can, you don't have to apologize if life got in the way, right? If you're off of Instagram for a while and you come back and you do this like post about apology, nobody noticed you were gone. Don't be so don't be so self focused, right? So a lot of times I will skip the apologizing at all. Number one, I say don't apologize. But if you do want to reflect on the gap, the time that has passed, then say something about it. The way that I prefer to do this one, if I'm going to do it at all, is I acknowledge, how do I want to say this? 6 months ago when we spoke, you were XYZ. I acknowledge the time frame so that they know that we spoke in the past. I'm not apologizing that it's been 6 months since I followed up. I'm just acknowledging like the time frame of, hey, we did speak in the past. We've spoken before, reminding them. I kind of use it for that. So it depends on your personality. If you're like, I personally would say don't apologize, even if you want to say, hey, it's been 6 months since we spoke. That's okay. But you do you. You do you. All right. Sorry. All right. R, reopen the door. If you don't know by now, you're making me nervous. It's WAR. Reopen the door. So ask, is this still something you're thinking about? Hey, I know you were working on XYZ before when we talked about working together and you didn't have the time. Are you still interested in XYZ that I do? I know you said you were interested, but you were working on this thing at the time. Are you still interested in it? Would it be worth me sending something else about it, refreshing your memory? Would it be worth me sending you this last mastermind that I did that is is about exactly what we spoke about? Hopping on a call. Remember, hopping on a call is the strongest of all of them. So if you feel like you need to ease your way into it, send them a cheat sheet. Speaking of cheat sheet, if you want the cheat sheet for this, drop it down below. You can drop the word. You can drop the word that this is down below. I'll give it to you in a second. Anyway, just reopen the door by saying, hey, I know X, Y, and Z was going on. Are you still interested type thing, right? Something that they are thinking about or something that they were doing, and find out, is this still something you're interested in? Because you're following up because they were interested, and just life got in the way, you stopped following up, they had a project, whatever. There are a million reasons, right? You can, so just reopen the door with something about what they were doing, like why it was no at the moment, maybe. Why they were thinking about it back then, which again, right? We want to get to the no because. Anyway, move it forward. That's the M. So the word is warm. If you want to drop that down below, I'll send you the cheat sheet. The word is warm. So move it forward. Offer a small step, not a buy now pitch, right? You just want to kind of move them forward. So that is, where you can do the freebie or the maybe a mastermind. If you feel good enough at the moment, you can offer them to get on a call. That doesn't mean they have to buy now. You're not sending them, your Stripe link at the moment, right? It doesn't have to be that. Let's talk about how this might look now, or hey, I've done some, I've added some stuff to the program, or I have a bonus going on this month, whatever it is. A bonus going on this month might be a little bit more high pressure. Just think about how you want it to move and who that person is. And here's where like a little bit of the thought process can come in. Now we've gotten through all the rest without you really having to give it too much thought. But here you do kind of want to think a little bit based on personality. And I would take notes on this. Like I would take notes on when you go to call, who says yes. Because if you can take notes on the types of personalities you're trying to move to call and whether they say yes or no, then that you might get some data from that and know, okay, this is a good type, this is a bad type. And or, okay, this personality type, I should always go to call. This personality type, I should probably always go to, a freebie or whatever. It may work like that. Anyway. Data, track it all. All right, so here's cold lead, like it's been 3 weeks, 3 months, whatever. Hey, I was thinking about that goal you mentioned. Now, I'm saying the goal you mentioned, I would be specific, right? Launching your group offer before the end of the year. See, now we're specific, right? Totally get how busy things get. So just circling back, still something you're planning to move on. That last line, make it your own. Like I've never in my life said circling back, right? Hey, I just wanted to check in again. If that's something you're working on, I've got this X, Y, and Z going on. Love for you to be a part of it. Maybe you're doing a conversion event, or I just created this new cheat sheet and I think it would really help you move farther. Something that you can tag them back on that and see if they're still interested. All right, so what if it's a warm lead? So the last conversation ended with interest, like they were interested in what you were doing. But something happened, right? So you mentioned you were feeling lit up by what we spoke about, the idea of simplifying your marketing. Just wanted to check, see where your head's at. Want to jam on it for a few minutes this week. So subtle difference between the two, but you want to be a little bit maybe more casual in the warm one. Definitely, no matter what you do, make it as personalized as possible, as specific as possible, and move it forward. That is the bottom line. Move it forward. And again, if you've got ChatGPT and you already have like your twin in there, or you've just dialed in enough to know, just put the warm in there and say, hey, I want to create some messaging about, what I do for my, cold clients or cold prospects, for some that, definitely were interested and just didn't close. Create a couple of different flows and see, okay, this one works. Oh, I like this line out of this one. Move them all around, right? See what works for you. And then keep that, use that and personalize it when you're sending it. Does that make sense? All right. You want to make it irresistibly relevant. Here's the biggest piece. You don't want to be annoying. And I know that most people avoid following up because they don't want to be annoying. And I get that. But it is a service. when it's done with heart and with context. So remember, you care if they actually work with you because they will do better. They will lose weight. They will be healthier. They'll live longer. They'll look better. They'll feel better. They'll have more confidence. They'll get paid more. Whatever it is that you do, right? You're offering them a service to improve them, their lives, their health, their wealth, whatever it is, right? So you've got the heart and add in that context. What was it? Right? What are you following up about and why? Add that in there that makes it specific to the person. So you can share something useful. Remember, you can do a quick win. Maybe that happened with you. I would use that one, sparingly. You want it to be about them, not you. But you could share a resource, something that ties into your last conversation. You could ask like a real question. Try not to do so canned here. And then reflect back to what they said that they wanted. I know you wanted to make 10,000 by the end of this year. Where are you at on that? How can I help you get there? Let's talk about that. That type of thing. So it's not about pushing, it's about reminding them. Can you hear me? It's about reminding them about what matters. So just a little side note. I live in a city and it is so loud, and I absolutely love Zoom because of it. But Zoom doesn't play nice with third-party stuff, and so it gets crazy. Anyway, all right, so let me hear you for a second. Just, have you ever had a lead go cold and you just weren't sure whether you should follow up, and then you let it go? And then you let it go. Drop, yes, cold. Yes, cold. How many of you have done that? I know I have. I think that following up, it's hard. It's not easy. It's very uncomfortable for, I would say, most of us. Don't feel like you're like the only person in the world that doesn't like doing this. I mean, I think nobody does. And making ourselves do it feels kind of weird. And then we go to, well, let me just hire a closer. Let me hire you can't hire that stuff out at the beginning. You really can't. Unless you are, so you're like, corporations do it all the time. Of course they do it all the time, but you know how much money and time they have behind those things? Just a tad bit more than you do. Just a tad bit more than you do. So if you're like, oh, I've got plenty of money. I have plenty of money. I just don't want to do it myself. Well, go for it. You can hire 6 different people, 6 different scripts, see which one's working the best, dial those in. You could do that, but it's going to take a while, and people buy from people. And so you need them to be buying from you, especially if you are, right? If you are the product, if you are who they want to work with. So you can see like, I love Tony Robbins. You guys have heard me talk about Tony Robbins a million times, right? But I know that I am never going to be sitting in a one-on-one chat with Tony Robbins telling me what I should do next. That's just not going to happen, right? So when I want to spend money on Tony Robbins, it's not even actually for him. It's for the atmosphere that he creates, that whoosh. That's what I would spend money on Tony Robbins for. If I want somebody looking at my stuff, I'm not spending money on Tony Robbins. Why? Because I'm paying Tony Robbins for one of his coaches. Well, I'd rather hire a coach myself that I have met. Do you see what I'm saying? So you can do the same thing and feel the same thing in your business. When you get higher and higher and higher, yep, every level has different problems, right? But at this stage of the game, if you're even listening to this, it's because you don't have your flow down perfectly so that you've got a certain amount of leads coming in every week, every month, every day, a certain amount of sales happening every week, every month, every day. You don't have that down yet. And until you have that down, you can't scale up to, the size of a corporation. You just can't. So you need to really get it down yourself first. I want to hear from you. Drop it in the chat if you're like, yeah, I'm in, that's me. Or if you're like, I'm hiring. No way. I'm never doing it. So it's hard. So hard. But I do believe we need to do it first ourselves. So just say me or hiring in there. I just want to see who's actually going to try it themselves and do it themselves. And if you do it, go through that warm process with somebody. I would love for you to send me a DM, to tag me on a screenshot if you do a post about it, whatever it is. I'd love to hear how that went for you because it's effective if you use it. And don't try it once and be like, oh my God, this didn't work. I'm never doing it again. Everything we do is a numbers game. Every single thing we do is a numbers game. You can't put out one piece of content and be like, I rock. Everybody come to me now, right? You cannot go to the gym and do some sit-ups and expect six-pack abs. There's a lot of other stuff that go into six-pack abs, right? Same thing with everything in life. So if you're going to be into this, you have to do it over and over and over and over and over and iterate and track it and be taking notes on what's working, what's not. And what's not doesn't mean if 10 people ignore you, it's like, oh my God, this isn't working. No, you've got to do 100, 1,000 even to get real numbers on this. All right. I think that is all I have for you today. I would love to hear if you want the cheat sheet. It's got the whole warm process in there. And then I did some like before and afters, like don't say this, say this type thing in there. And I feel like there's something else, but I can't remember what right now. Anyway, there's goodies. There's goodies. Get it. Just drop warm underneath this video if you want that, and I will send it right over to you. Have an amazing day, and I will see you next week. Same time, same place. Looking forward to it. Oh, and we've got another experience coming up in the beginning of December. We'll probably start talking about it on next Thursday's live. But if you know you're in and you're like, I'm not missing another one, just chat me ahead of time. I'll make sure you're on the list. All right, ciao, ciao. Have an amazing rest of your Thursday, rest of your weekend. How many of you are taking off the whole week next week? The whole week. Just forget it. I'm not working at all. How many of you are like, oh my God, I'm so working. It's going to be a quiet week. And the rest of the world, and I'm going all in. I'm like, psh, all in. I'm going all in. End of the year is like sprint up, not down for me. I think it's more fun. So I will see you same time, same place next week. Ciao, ciao.